the start of week number 4 of this 2024 NFL regular season. A very impactful game on this Thursday night. The Dallas Cowboys on the road in MetLife, a divisional duel between two teams that both sit at 1-2 following 2 weeks. The Cowboys DRS now a 5.5-point favorite. Total is 45.5. This line was 4.5 earlier in the week. I think the market reflecting what the sports bettor is feeling. If Dallas is going to be worth anything this year, double-digit wins in the regular season, contending for a divisional crown, maybe doing something that has eluded them and reaching an NFC title game, this is a game to prove their stuff tonight in MetLife.
It is. And also, sometimes it gets down to the common denominator, the simplest form, Ben. Who has the better quarterback in this game? It's clear the Dallas Cowboys, with Dak Prescott, have the better quarterback. The Dallas football team should be able to move the rock against the Giants tonight from an offense to defensive perspective. Now, whatever you get out of Daniel Jones could be a positive. If he throws a touchdown pass or two, that's great. We understand Malik Neighbors is a wonderful talent. But just man-for-man talent-wise, Dallas is the better team. But I did like what I saw out of the last 2 weeks from the Giants. Even though the Giants did lose to the Commanders, that wasn't the team's fault. That was upper management's fault and the coach's fault for not bringing a kicker. Otherwise, you'd be 2-1 heading into this game. And say what you would about Cleveland. We don't think they're a very good team, but still the Giants going on the road to Cleveland and picking up a victory here. I liked what I saw. I love what I said of Malik Neighbors. He's a target machine. He should be getting the football a lot tonight. But the way I think it plays out is Dallas was embarrassed for the past 2 weeks with their performances at home. And also, I love how you use the media. CeeDee Lamb sticks out in front and says, you know what? This is on me. No excuses. I got my money. I got to perform better. Dak Prescott after the game last week. We were unprofessional on offense. That can't happen again. So it looks like the word is getting home to Dallas where their season is on the line. As you said, they need a victory tonight. They should be able to get it. And the same theory goes, if they're going to win the football game and it's under a touchdown on the number, then you should be betting the Dallas Cowboys accordingly.
The 19th game consecutively, the G-Men have been booked as an underdog. The last time they were favored in week 2 last year against Arizona. And listen, the idea that this game would not be elimination for one of the teams that falls in defeat, and thus it does not actually matter. Go watch the crowd at Bryant-Denny on Saturday night and tell me it doesn't matter or it doesn't feel significant in that atmosphere at Alabama. Anyway, let's go around what we're seeing here in week number 4 of this NFL regular season. Dallas now a 5.5-point favorite on the road in MetLife against the Giants. Total 45.5. DRS, I said this right before we got to the end of our opening hour. This is the 19th consecutive game for New York as the underdog. Week 2 last year was the last time they were booked as the favorite. They did win that game 31-28. I think even covering as less than a field goal favorite. The Cowboys now laying 5.5 on the road. The Giants have not been a great franchise as of late, and the Giants are just 1-2. But the Giants actually have been a pretty decent cover team in all of those games as an underdog. 19 of the last 20 since the start of last year, now about to be 20 of the last 21. And again, an underdog in 19 consecutive games starting tonight. 9-9-1 against the spread as the underdog, including that outright victory in Cleveland in week number 3. The Cowboys only win outright as an underdog against the Browns on the road in the land week number 1. What do you make of this game with a 5.5-point spread on a short week?
Yeah, it's interesting because usually my thought process always goes to, Ben, the home team on a Thursday night has a major advantage. The home team in this game is the New York Giants, who play competent football the past 2 weeks. And also, you take a look at that spread at 5.5. So theoretically, 23-20 game, Dallas gets their win, the Giants cover. But also, sometimes you're just looking at this game and saying to myself, as I already brought up, one quarterback is really bad. I don't care that Daniel Jones threw 2 touchdown passes last week. Hallelujah, my goodness, it's amazing. He can actually do that. The one thing we do know is this game is going to feature 2 really good wide receivers. CeeDee Lamb of the Dallas Cowboys, Malik Neighbors for the New York Giants.
Yeah.
But this game is only going to feature one really good quarterback, and that's regular season Dak Prescott, who can put up numbers, where you're hoping Daniel Jones can just run a competent offense for the New York Giants. You know what else we know we have? Both of these teams don't really have a dominant running game, just to say the least. I I like Devin Singletary as a running back, but in that offense, just okay. Not nearly as hitting as what Saquon Barkley is doing with the Philadelphia Eagles. That would have been nice to have the Giants for tonight with Saquon Barkley in the backfield, but they don't have him. Rico Dowdle on the other side. You take a look at some of the other guys are bringing in. Deuce, come on now at this point. You have an aging running back over there in Zeke. That doesn't work for me. So I do think we might get some aerial shots here tonight from those two wide receivers, but just breaking it down. Coming into the season, we didn't think the Giants had much of a chance in the NFC East. We thought the Dallas Cowboys could challenge the Philadelphia Eagles as the two top teams in there. Washington, we'll get to it at a later time. They look pretty good as well. But just for my money, I just like what I'm hearing out of Dallas, where the pressure is really ratcheting up on the season, because if you drop to 1-3, your season is quickly slipping away. And it looks like Dallas is having some accountability, Ben, right, on the offense. CeeDee Lamb, get in front of that mic. Hey, I got my money. I'm supposed to perform. I can't be dropping passes and fumbling in the red zone here. That's not what it's about. I'll get that corrected. And Dak Prescott basically calling out the entire offense, including their head coach, as being unprofessional and unprepared for a football game as big as that last game was against the Baltimore Ravens. I think they tidy up tonight. I think they're the more athletic team with better talent, and they win this game. Am I loving betting the road team on a Thursday? No, I'm not. But that's the direction I'm going with. I think the prop bets are a little bit better shots tonight, but that's the angle I look at tonight. Dallas should be shoring things up enough to beat the New York Giants.
Listen, I think the G-Men are actually more competitive this year than maybe we give them credit for. Maybe not winning games outright all the time, but keeping games closer than expected. So for Dallas now to cover by 6 points or more, really around a touchdown, short week Thursday night. We saw the Jets take advantage in MetLife last week of a spot that they needed, with maybe some line inflation because the Patriots were covering numbers or more competitive than we expected. Might Dallas do the same, albeit the road team? And frankly, DRS, maybe it's good for the Cowboys to get out of the star where they had won 16 consecutive home games entering week number 2, got blown out by New Orleans. Last week they lost by 3, but they were the home underdog against Baltimore. Of course, that game was closer in the end, but not really competitive throughout. Dallas last year as a road favorite, 4-1 against the spread, covering by more than 8 points per game. Dallas, one of two teams, only one of two so far in this NFL season in 2024 that has gone over in all 3 games, and the Cowboys over by nearly double digits, 9.8 points per game. The Ravens, the other team. When you look at the Giants, they are one of 8 teams that has been under in all 3 games. 45.5 is an intriguing total, I think, DRS tonight from that points perspective, if we are going to see Dallas be out there. There's the total board. I was waiting for it. How much offense do you think we get on this Thursday night at MetLife?
It's a short week, and again, some of these primetime Thursday night games tend to go under, but early in the season, sometimes you're pushing that needle a little bit more to the over than under because teams are fresher at this point. You don't have, enough film on certain guys, and also taking a look at Daniel Jones at this point. How about this? We talk about Dak Prescott from a passing perspective, Ben. Did you know 6th overall in the NFL for quarterbacks in passing attempts this year? It's actually Daniel Jones. And look at this, 4 touchdown passes through 3 weeks. That's an amazing pace for Daniel Jones. Usually it's 4 or 3 games in, he's got 1 touchdown pass, and he does have the 2 interceptions. And granted, one of those interceptions was a pick 6 by the Minnesota Vikings. Yeah. So it looks like they're starting to trust Daniel Jones more. And also, if you're looking at that total in points, Ben, right? If it was a clear ground and pound game for both sides, the clock's going to run, a defensive effort, you're sort of left there trying to hope for points. But if we're taking a look at the offense for the Dallas Cowboys, which is built on the passing game, and Daniel Jones, as I just said, 6th most passing attempts in the NFL, maybe we're seeing more passes tonight. And also, if the running game is stuffed, incompletions, big completions, penalties, incomplete passes, stop the clock, maybe get more plays tonight. So I do think the game does trend more to an over for me than an under.
Yeah. Daniel Jones was awful in week 1 at home, his only home game in MetLife this year. He got booed by the home crowd, 22 of 42 for $186, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. But in the 2 road games against Washington and against Cleveland last week, multiple touchdown passes, not a single turnover. He has been sacked 8 times this year. Something to pay attention to. Michael Parsons looking pretty good, looking for that contract next season. DRS Dallas now. We didn't really have high expectations for the G-Men, even if they cover numbers a little bit more than we anticipated this year. Updated win total 5.5. It was 6.5 before the year. But the Cowboys win total is now 9.5, and the under has the juice. Listen, we can talk about the Cowboys postseason outlook at another date, and I am not optimistic about that. But Dallas has won 12 games each of the past 3 years, and now they're not expected to even reach double digits.
Yeah, it is interesting because we tend to doubt them. Now, this week they have the Giants, then they go to the Steelers and the Detroit Lions before the bye, and then probably catching a healthy San Francisco 49ers team after that bye, followed by the Falcons and the Eagles. This is a tough road for the Cowboys, man.
Player prop outlook for tonight. Will it dictate the outcome? Find out next. The props for Thursday night football to kick off week number 4. Donnie, I agree with you. I think more than the side or maybe even the total tonight, there are some good prop looks on this Thursday. Now, Dak Prescott leads the National Football League in passing yards this year. He had 379 and 2 touchdowns against the Ravens. Was 28 of 51. He had 293 and a touchdown, albeit 2 interceptions in week 2 against the Saints. He's got more than 850 so far this season. But the reason he leads the league is a little bit skewed. It's because the Cowboys have been playing from such a deficit the last 2 weeks at home at the Store. We just talked about Daniel Jones, 199 and a hook. A very low number, and not a number he has gone over often this year. In fact, only week number 3 against Cleveland. But he has had multiple touchdown passes without throwing an INT each of the past 2 weeks. Both quarterbacks slightly favored, at least a little bit more minus money than not, to throw an interception tonight. DRS, how do you compare these two quarterbacks?
Yeah, if we're looking from Daniel Jones and Dak Prescott on, let's just say the yardage number, right? 199 and a half. You figure that they're the underdog. They should be throwing in the fourth quarter. But sometimes, like Daniel Jones having to throw and needing to throw, right, usually get him in trouble. Daniel Jones with a lead in the second half is probably a little bit better because you don't expect that he's going to drop back every single time. So the point I'm making here is like he should throw for over 200 yards in this game. But this turns into, let's just say Dallas has a 10-point lead, Ben, in the fourth quarter. There's 11 minutes to go, and Daniel Jones has 168 yards passing. Normally, you'd say that should be very easy, but that also means that pass rush is going to start getting home with Micah Parsons. That means Daniel Jones is going to start to see the ghosts of his past where he's not a great passer. Interceptions, strip sack fumbles, the game, sort of gets put off because Dallas starts to run the clock out. And also, Dak Prescott's 256 and a half. He's supposed to hit that, but also, you're right. When Dallas has a runner with them, which means the other team has an offense that can put up equal points or put Dallas in a deficit, there's no better quarterback than Dak Prescott, as you saw the past couple of weeks. Hey, late in the game, I'll be the one that throws for 100 fourth quarter yards if we need it, if we're down 2 touchdowns, and he can do that. So I do think the better chance to get over the number is Dak Prescott at 256 and a half. The reason I say this is that's their game plan. The game plan is not for Daniel Jones to throw for 276 yards in a winning effort. That's probably a losing effort for the New York Giants. But also, flip it over to the touchdown passes tonight. Daniel Jones to throw 2. That's crazy at a plus 200 price. Can he do that? Possibly. Would I bet on it? Probably not. But the one I do love, which earlier in the week at the FanDuel Sportsbook was lower, and today the over 1.5 on Dak Prescott is minus 146. I still love that. I can't see in any world tonight winning or losing based on what we heard out of the Dallas camp this week as they were unprofessional on offense, and CeeDee Lamb is saying, I got to make up for it. Do you know how coaches handle this? Do you know how players like Dak Prescott handle this? Hey, CD, let's put on a show. I got you. You're getting 13, 14, 15 targets tonight, and when we get to the red zone, I'm targeting you multiple times. Dak Prescott over 2 touchdown passes tonight. I flat out love that bet.
And you know who's finding pay dirt? It's the guy that is favored to do so at minus 130. That would be CeeDee Lamb. DRS, I think I could look at every CeeDee Lamb prop tonight and bet the over. When a wide receiver takes accountability, calls themselves out for lack of production. Jamar Chase kind of said something similar entering week number 3. It was a Jamar Chase game despite Cincinnati faltering in that Monday Night Football game against the Commanders. But when a wide receiver calls himself out, which is not what you often see, you look at them tonight. 6.5 receptions, 79.5 receiving yards, minus 130 to find pay dirt. DRS, he has been targeted 7 times in all 3 games for the Cowboys this year, but only has 13 grabs. He did score week number 2 against New Orleans. Again, I look to CD tonight. I think my favorite of all of them is anytime TD at minus 130.
Yes, and by the way, the Giants have a surprisingly good pass rush coming on. Brian Burns, the acquisition. You got Lawrence on the defensive line. They're really good. But also, the deficiency of that defense is no playmakers in the secondary, which really helps out CeeDee Lamb. And also, when we're going to talk about Malik Neighbors in just a few moments. But I always love to play into the narratives that I saw the week previous. The only guy that doesn't play into those narratives, like, hey, Gabe Davis is going back to Buffalo. I'm going to make sure I take care of Trevor Lawrence. He can't even take care of himself, let alone help anybody else on the field. Dak Prescott can take care of his best weapons, and he's going to do that tonight.
Yeah. Jake Ferguson was the leading receiver in week 3, missed week 2. He had more than 90 yards. 42 and a half is the number. I think it's a discount. Again, I think the offense is going to look good for Dallas tonight. Now let's talk Malik Neighbors, DRS. He has been sensational this year. You know who leads the National Football League in targets so far? It's Malik Neighbors with 37. He has been targeted double-digit times in each of the past 2 weeks. He's got 3 receiving scores in each of the past 2 weeks. I have loved this guy since he came in. He bagged on the Century Red uniforms. He is called Daniel Jones, He is the guy who has backed up his talk early with his play, those putrid uniforms. There is Malik Neighbors, though. And again, 6.5 receptions feels a little bit light to me.
Yeah, it does. And you should be focused on Neighbors because, once again, that Dallas Cowboys secondary, much maligned through the first couple weeks of the season, not really stopping anybody, which Malik Neighbors is the centerpiece of that offense. He is going to get 10-plus targets in this game. And also, playing into the line itself, Ben, if you're the underdog, theoretically, you're supposed to lose that football game.
Correct.
More passing in the fourth quarter as opposed to running the clock out. Wan'Dale Robinson also is going to pick up some of those scraps. If you have to stop Malik Neighbors, what are you doing as a defense? Double coverage, rolling your coverage to his side, which leads Wan'Dale Robinson the chance to catch those short passes and turn them into longer gains. He's listed right now at 34.5. But also, if we're looking at the pass rush for the Dallas Cowboys, which I do think is decent, it hasn't been great to start the season. If they are getting home, I love to take a look at running backs. Devin Singletary, 15.5. Screen pass or 2, 3 to 4 targets in this game. He can get that. And also, if they are losing, that means extra targets and a third down back for Devin Singletary. So I'm not down. Look, we're talking mostly about the Dallas Cowboys and the explosiveness of their offense. I think there's some money to be made, even if Daniel Jones is my quarterback, on some of these low prices for the Giants wideouts.
And look at the ground numbers for the Cowboys. Rico Dowdle has the highest rushing yards prop at 38.5. That is an issue for the Cowboys. We expect the offense to be better, but it has not been good for Dallas. Third worst rushing offense in the NFL to start this year, less than 74 yards per game. Thursday night football around the National Football League, a short week TNF game to kick off week number 4. And for a third consecutive week, a divisional duel tonight in MetLife. Mark Zinno's New York Giants hosting the Dallas Cowboys. The G-Men a 5.5-point underdog, total at 45.5. Zinno, this will be the 19th consecutive game for New York, booked as an underdog, but in the 19 of 20 games, New York in total has been an underdog the last 2 years. They're 9-9-1 against the spread. The Cowboys just a 1-2 football team, much like New York. What do you think the outcome looks like tonight on a Thursday at MetLife?
Well, the Cowboys have won 13 of the last 14 meetings in this series, with 9 of those going over the total. So I think that's really the trend here. But, more importantly, I lean Giants plus the points. Why? Because guess what we found out through 2 weeks? Maybe it was Dan Quinn. Maybe it was just some personnel. But the Cowboys' defense is not what it used to be. They allowed 274 yards on 45 carries last week to the Ravens. And then in week 2, the Saints rushed for 190 yards on 39 attempts. So I expect a heavy dose of Devin Singletary and the Giants' run game early on. Why? Because what Brian Daboll has learned, the more I ask Daniel Jones to do stuff, the worse off I am. So the idea is to make sure that he doesn't have to do many things in this game to keep this thing competitive. I know Malik Neighbors has kind of burst onto the scene the last 2 weeks, and he's looked every bit as good as advertised, and that is a bright spot for the Giants. But when you have no other places to throw the ball, the Cowboys can kind of key on one guy defensively. I know they got some injuries in the secondary, so I expect this thing to be pretty run-heavy at the outset, but I think both teams are going to be able to score. I lean the over, but I'll take the Giants and the points tonight.
Yeah, take a look at a couple of those team totals tonight from the FanDuel Sportsbook. The Cowboys over 25.5. The Giants listed at 19.5. If we take a look at some prop angles here, we'll start with the Dallas Cowboys. You see Dak Prescott starting quarterback, 256.5 as his passing prop. Touchdowns over 1.5. And then you see the anytime interception by Dak Prescott at a minus 114. Let's start with Dak Prescott. Expectations tonight, Mark, for you. What is it?
I would think that over 1.5 passing touchdowns is the play for him because they don't have a run game to speak of. They just don't. Like, I mean, there's the only way they're going to move the ball down the field is in the passing game. You may also want to look at a Dak Prescott anytime touchdown because there's a good chance he might just plunge forward for one instead of trying to handing it off. It's probably a better way to look at least from a value perspective. So that's what I look for Dak. The Giants' pass defense hasn't been terrible, but they have some injuries in the secondary right now, and this is a short week for them. So Dak could possibly take advantage from passing yards. Remember, Dak does lead the league in passing, mostly because he's been trailing by 30 points the last 2 weeks, but nonetheless, he's able to throw the football.
Daniel Jones, Mark, in the one win for New York so far this year, well over 199.5. In fact, in 2 consecutive weeks, multiple touchdown passes without turning the football over and throwing an interception. If the Giants are going to keep this game competitive tonight at home against the Cowboys, you mentioned Brian Daboll not asking Daniel Jones to do all that much, but what do the G-men need out of Daniel Jones to keep this game close?
Again, that zero in the turnover column is probably the most important thing. He's got to take care of the football. But again, another spot here where Daniel Jones over 1.5 touchdowns at plus money seems like the way to go, right? As much as I think it's going to be run heavy and Devin Singletary is going to be a big part of it, Daniel Jones, the plus money value is there for me. With Neighbors being basically unguardable to this point, obviously he's going to be looked to a lot. And Jones and him are starting to build that rapport that you want your quarterback and wide receiver to have. So, again, I think that it's all up to the Giants and Daniel Jones to be able to work themselves in the passing game. And, oh, by the way, the Giants should never wear those ugly uniforms they wore on week 1 ever again. Don't put a graphic up with those. They're disgusting.
Absolutely.
And I don't know who came up with that idea. It's an absolute abortion of a uniform. It's just awful.
Welcome to hour number 3, our third and final live right here on this Thursday on the Early Line on Sports Grid. Here is the theme for this third and final hour. Thursday night football deep dive and breakdown. We'll give you the proper perspective with Tom Vecchio a little bit later on. But DRS, before we get to Thursday night football, we will also make sure you are set for the final 4 days. Technically 5 now with the Mets and the Braves postponed until Monday, but the final few days of this MLB regular season. Our insider, Craig Mish, will join us in just a little bit to look at what is still left, what is at stake, what remains to end out this MLB regular season. All of that in this third and final hour.
A lot to still be decided, a lot more money to still be made, and also jockeying for those positions, which certainly will be important. And also talking about jockeying for position in the NFL's NFC East tonight. Yeah, that's the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Giants picking that up as well to see if the Dallas Cowboys can even up their record, move forward with their season, or are we looking at, trying to get to the tarmac, Mr. McCarthy? Why don't you just stick around here a little bit longer, let the team fly back to Dallas without you?
I mean, listen, he's not under contract beyond this season, so that could be the case if the Cowboys falter. And because the line has worked to Dallas, we are seeing another 5.5-point spread. What does that mean? How is it influencing the public for tonight's Thursday night football game between the G-men and the boys? That was the question to all of you in Fade the Public. So, DRS, before we get to the results of this poll, I told you I would be keeping track of the public responses, and if we really should be fading the public for the standalone Monday and Thursday night football games where we ask a best bet or what is more likely, some question of the sort. It was a little bit complicated on Monday because we asked the public, money line winners, what do you like tonight in terms of a parlay? Of course, they went Buffalo and Cincy. The Bengals lost outright to Washington. So in the Fade the Public polls, the public now 3-3 and even 500, which leads us to tonight's votes and results. At SportsGrid on Twitter, what is the best bet for Thursday Night Football? Dallas laying the number. The Giants is the home underdog. Points over 45.5, or we stay under 45 and a hook. And most of the public, DRS, going with Dallas, laying 5.5, more than 44% of the votes back in the boys.
Yeah, how about this too? Over and under now updated here on X. 45.5 over, 45.5, under 45.5. They're tied at 17% apiece. So it's a draw there. But I do believe the public should be on the right side tonight, a -5.5 on the Dallas Cowboys. Just looking as the better football team. The tough part about it, too, is the expectations of Dallas being better than the New York Giants. But the past 2 weeks, we don't know actually how good the New Orleans Saints are since they lost to the Philadelphia Eagles, but it looks like they're going to be competent and maybe a 10-win team. Not so bad a loss, but you got blown out for the Cowboys. Last week, we expect the Ravens to be in the playoffs. So they lose to the Ravens. Not a great look because technically they were getting blown out until late. A couple of touchdowns here, both of those at home. Maybe it's best that they do get out of Jerry World and AT&T Stadium, flying up to New York here. We know in the New York metro area, a lot of Dallas Cowboys fans will be in the stands tonight, and I'm going to back them at the 5.5-point price. 44% of the public went that way. I'll agree with them.
Make your way from Long Island, cross a couple of rivers, and get to East Rutherford, New Jersey tonight to back your Cowboys, and best of luck to Ohio State on Saturday as well. DRS, as we look at the Fade the Public poll here, I would agree with the public here laying the number with Dallas. However, the New York Giants, who have often been a favorite in 20 games since the start of last season, an underdog in 19 of the 20. This will be the 19th consecutive game as a dog for Brian Daboll's boys tonight. They've been pretty good keeping games competitive, at least based on relative expectation. 9-9-1 against the spread. 2 games this year, or all 3 games this year for New York as an underdog. 1.5 dog week 1 at home. They got absolutely shell-shocked by Minnesota. Probably should have won week 2 in Washington if they just had a kicker on the roster, and then won outright last week by a ton against the Browns. These 2 NFC East divisional foes, both 1-2, each with their only win of the year on the road in Cleveland, outright as the underdog. But, Donnie, I mentioned the 5.5-point spread. Are we forgetting the trends to start the year of the dog in the NFL? Through 3 weeks so far this season, we have seen 16 teams be an underdog of 5.5 points or greater. 14-2 against the number, 10 outright victories. The Giants are getting 5.5 now, despite opening as a 4.5-point underdog earlier in the week.
And also, like, the competency of the New York Giants. We didn't know if it was going to be there this year. I do think Brian Daboll's a good coach, but they just don't have a lot of talent. But let's understand this. They lost opening day to the Minnesota Vikings, who, quite frankly, might be the best team in the NFL right now. Week number 2, if they just brought a kicker to Washington, they win that football game and improve to 1-1. And last week, going on the road against the Cleveland Browns, winning that game, they should be 2-1 right now, going up against the 1-2 Dallas Cowboys, maybe changing the trajectory of the Giants season if they could win that game outright. But it's always still comes down to this. It's Daniel Jones at quarterback here. Do we expect greatness out of him? No. Who's going to bail him out? A rookie wide receiver repeatedly tonight to try to knock off the Dallas Cowboys? That's what's tough to wrap your heads around. But also, as we talked earlier in the show, there's not great ground games that you can lean on. It's not as if, Saquon Barkley is back with the New York Giants. You say, short week here. We see that Dallas is susceptible to the run. Last week, they got hammered by the Baltimore Ravens. You do have a mobile quarterback in Daniel Jones, but you don't really have – Singletary's an okay running back, not one of the top, let's just say, 10 or 15 backs in football. That could have been an advantage that you could have used against the Dallas Cowboys, which I don't think will be there tonight. And also, as we talked about so many times already, Ben, the accountability tonight of the Dallas Cowboys from what they showed, unacceptable to have back-to-back performances at home where they basically no-showed here. They're looking for an improved performance. And Micah Parsons, where you been, man? Tonight is your night. You're going up against 2 tackles you could probably be able to beat here, and Daniel Jones, who's known for a strip sack fumble or 2 in his career. Maybe he makes that big defensive imprint tonight, and that happens.
Listen, I want to bet Micah Parsons over his number. Daniel Jones has been sacked 8 times, including 5, the only game at home in MetLife against the Minnesota Vikings. No sack props out just yet, just players to record an INT so far. In terms of the total, 45.5 is the number. Seems a little bit steep for a short week Thursday night football game. The Cowboys, though, one of two teams, along with the Ravens, that have been over in all three games this year and going over for Dallas by an average margin of nearly double digits, 9.8 points per game. The Giants enter Week 4 as one of the 8 teams in a season where points are at a premium that have been under in all 3 games. It's really interesting, Donnie, to look at the props tonight, because we'll talk quarterbacks later on. We'll give you the prop perspective with Tom Vecchio. I will have a keen eye on both of the top targets. I think it's a big night for CeeDee Lamb, and I think when you look at Malik Neighbors, this will be an interesting time for the rookie wide receiver out of LSU. Everybody knows the ball is going to Neighbors. He has been targeted 37 times already this year, leading the National Football League. Double-digit targets in each of the last 2 weeks. How much emphasis will the New York Giants put on getting the ball to Neighbors? And thus, how much will Dallas be looking to stop that tonight?
Yeah, and I don't know. Dallas' secondary hasn't been all that good to start this season, so waiting on some injury guys at this point. I mean, I don't know if they're going to get better overnight at that point, but we are taking a look at a guy that you're expecting to get 10-plus targets regardless of who he's going up against, and then some of those scraps, as we said, could fall down to Wan'Dale Robinson. And also in that last graphic put up, when I talk about the Giants just not being all that talented overall, there's a guy on that screen that you could have put any name up there, and I don't even know if I would have understood who that is. Theo Johnson. Come on now, Giants.
I believe that's the tight end, right? I think he's from Penn State.
You could have told me it was a kicker, and I would have no idea who that guy was.
You know it's not a kicker. Who is the Giants kicker? Is it Graham Gano? Who did they sign last week? Oh, yeah, Greg Joseph. Break the leg. All right. The prop perspective for Thursday Night Football to kick off Week 4 of this NFL season with none other than Sports Grid's Tom Vecchio. Vecchio, as always, we appreciate your time. Thank you for being here to get us set for TNF. You'll be on the pregame show to get us ready for Thursday Night Football later across the Spiz Grizz Network. We appreciate the time, as always.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, certainly an interesting game tonight. I want to say this is like a borderline put up or shut up for the Cowboys, as they would be staring down 1-3. It doesn't really matter that much for the Giants. I'm just looking for continued big usage for Malik Neighbors. I'm ready to roll tonight. I'm not sure we're in for the most exciting game, but I have some props I'm ready to get to.
Third short week Thursday Night Football game of the year, all divisional duels. Second consecutive in East Rutherford, New Jersey at MetLife. Vecchio, you mentioned what is at stake tonight. The Giants, an underdog for a 19th consecutive game. They've been a dog 19 of 20 games since the start of last year, but not bad covering numbers, 9-9-1 against the spread. But the line has worked to Dallas. Now a 5.5-point number in favor of the Cowboys. Put up or shut up time to make a statement. I would agree. Is that why you believe the line is working to Dallas?
I do. I think this game has to be a course correction for their defense. They have been, as everyone knows, the past 2 weeks just abused left and right on defense. Kamara, the rushing game from Henry and Lamar Jackson last week, you name it. That has to be the focus. Despite I think that has to be the focus for our defense. I still like Singletary this week. I still think we're going to hit the under, and this game has to be drawn out. Like I think the Cowboys need to slow this game down, and if they try to get into a shootout, or it turns into a shootout, they don't want to get into a shootout, but if it turns into a shootout, things are going to go really bad really quickly for them.
If we take a look at the Dallas Cowboys here, Tom, and try to line up their offense, we've seen it in the press. Ben and I have talked about it multiple times this morning already. Dak Prescott saying we were unprofessional on offense this past weekend. That has to get corrected. And also CeeDee Lamb at his own press conference, basically calling himself out, saying he has to be better. What can we look forward tonight from that Dallas Cowboys offense, particularly from a Dak Prescott perspective? His passing prop, 256.5, touchdowns over 1.5 at that minus 146 price now, an interception at minus 114. What are we looking at from a Dallas perspective, particularly with Dak Prescott?
I think this has to be a classic Dak to CeeDee game early and often. Get him 10, 12 targets, get him over that 100-yard mark, get him a touchdown. I don't want to say like they have to quiet the critics, but the contract talks coming into the season, the sideline thing from last week, like you said, like they need to be more professional as a team, individually. Get the ball early and often to CeeDee, your best player. Operate as rationally as possible. Leave yourself out of 3rd and long. Like, do everything the right way. Cover the number. Keep the defense in check. Keep Malik Neighbors in check if you can possibly can. And win this game if they want to course correct on their season.
So let's now go to the New York Giants. In Vecchio, you see Daniel Jones's number. It's humble in comparison to Dak, 199.5. But in the only win for the G-Men this year, last year in Cleveland, he went over this number, well over 2 bills. His favorite target has been Malik Neighbors, the top target in the National Football League with 37 of them so far through 3 weeks. That's the rookie wideout out of LSU, Malik Neighbors. How would you describe this connection so far between Danny Dimes and Neighbors through the first 3 weeks?
It's been nothing short of amazing. And granted, I'm not very high on Daniel Jones long term. I wasn't high on him coming into the season. Obviously, Neighbors is a phenomenal talent. I'm going to say now that Neighbors is approaching what I say in the NBA when it comes to like an Antetokounmpo or a Doncic, where you don't take unders on him. If you want to go to one of his props, you take the over. I'm not saying I'm going to take the over every single time, but I'm not willing to take an under on a player that's going to command a 35% target share that has this much skill and especially the Giants defense continues to be bad. They're going to be constantly forced into these passing game scripts, and Neighbors is going to see 10 plus targets every single week, regardless of how good the defense may be. He's going to get yards. So I'm just not willing to take an under on him at all.
If we look at also from a tight end perspective here, Jake Ferguson, 4.5 catches, 42.5 yards. How do you deal with a player that was explosive last week, talking about a lot of targets coming in direction, but also from the game flow perspective where he was down late in the game and getting a lot of targets? How does that transfer over to a game where you don't expect to be down late in the third quarter, the fourth quarter by 2 touchdowns to the Giants on a guy like Jake Ferguson?
Right. I think Ferguson's a good talent. And like you said, the game script against the Ravens poured directly into his usage. That's why he was getting so yards. I'm a little hesitant, especially on a short week. You know, he missed 2 weeks ago when he was dealing with that knee injury after week 1 against the Browns. So I'm generally a little hesitant on players that I think are good, but ultimately they're secondary options in the offense. And then the short week, the injury. So I would stay away from Ferguson. Again, if we look directly, that game script influenced him having a lot of yards. So it's kind of just a move on for me. And if I miss out on an opportunity to take it over, so be it. We can we could just look at the change in things next week, I would say is the best way to go about it.
Vecchio, the ground game has been a major concern for the Cowboys to start this year on both sides of the football. Offensively, 3rd worst in the NFL, running for less than 74 yards per game. Defensively, after giving up 274 to Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, and the flock last week, they are the worst rushing defense in the National Football League, allowing nearly 186 yards per game on the ground. How does that influence how you approach the prop market for both Cowboys and the Giants in terms of that ground game?
Yeah, when it comes to the Cowboys, A, they're not running the ball well, and B, they're not stopping the run. And I think we look to running backs on both sides. So Zeke, I particularly like him under 7.5 rush attempts, which is sitting at minus 120. He's not being effective when he's out there. Also, we're seeing a very split backfield with Rigo Dow in the mix. Also, Deuce Vaughn isn't playing a whole lot, but he's taking a few, touches here or there. And given how bad the Cowboys defense has been, if they fall behind, Zeke does not play a part in the passing game. So he will literally not be on the field. We have seen his snaps decline over the last 3 weeks when they're playing from behind. So I can't possibly go to Zeke, who I just think is being ineffective, under 3 yards per carry this season. So just not a player, over the last 2 weeks, not a player I'm willing to go to. And then on the other side, Devin Singletary has been awesome. He's averaging just over 17 total touches per game. He is involved in the passing game and the rushing game. Tyrone Tracy really isn't an issue. We're seeing Devin Singletary play on over 70% of the snaps. Like, this is the game to get him the ball and continue to exploit the Dallas defense of what they've struggled with so much. So over 80.5 rushing plus receiving for Singletary.
All right, some top props there for Tom. Also, Major League Baseball in full swing here. West Coast tonight, San Diego taking on Los Angeles, Musgrove, and Bueller. Slight price here, minus 116. What do we got? What do you mean, whoa? We just gave
the top props.
We did the props. Yeah.
But, Donnie, I thought
we're getting heat in the background right here.
I thought you were going to – I mean, Donnie did a good job of hosting, but I thought Donnie was going to highlight the very top prop there, DRS. That's probably why you missed it. You don't even know who the guy
Theo,
is.
Yeah, hold on. You know what? Let's reset this here. Theo Johnson, is that? Well, forget about your prop on this. Is that a real guy? Can you make sure, Tom Vecchio, that we're not betting and playing
That's a real player.
Go ahead.
That's a real player. He is a fourth-round pick from Penn State. Their rookie tight end. Under 13.5 receiving yards for him. He has a 7.1 target share. That's fifth on the team. Through the first 3 weeks, he has 2 catches for 31 yards in the 3 games. So he's literally not involved in the passing offense. He's playing on a good amount of snaps, but yet he's just not a passing option. When it comes to the Giants, it's going to Malik Neighbors, it's going to Wan'Dale Robinson, and then it's going to Singletary. So under 13.5 for Theo Johnson.
Listen, he's a big boy. He's 6'6", 260 from Winnipeg, but Donnie doesn't like him, and neither does Tom, at least in terms of his receiving yards number tonight. I feel like Donnie actually doesn't like the individual. Tom just doesn't like the props. All right, Vecchio, 2 spots to clinch tonight. The Dodgers in L.A., the Yankees in the Bronx. New York has failed the last 2 nights. The Dodgers, with a win over San Diego yesterday, a chance to clinch tonight. Will both teams get it done on this Thursday?
Don't have faith in the Dodgers because Walker Buehler has been downright terrible. I'm looking to Garrett Cole. They're going up against the Orioles, actually Corbin Burns. So under 8 in that game. I'm probably looking at Garrett Cole over on outs if you can find it. I haven't seen it listed. The Yankees bullpen has kind of been taxed over the past 2 games, so they just need him to go deeper into the game tonight.
Tom Vecchio does it all. He's the jack of all trades. You'll see him tonight getting you set for Thursday Night Football on Sports Grid. Vecchio, talk to you later. Thanks for being here.